Black Sun, the first book, you sort of start by following three main characters. I would say there's four POVs in the first book, but we really follow three main characters. There's Narampa, the Sun Priest, who is, I like to describe as sort of a woman who grew up on the wrong side of the tracks, but has risen to power. And she is the most powerful person in this capital city, the holy city, Tova, who rules over the Watchers. And their job is sort of to suppress magic, which because magic had led to this massive war in the past, and now we're all science and the stars, and we do things like that. We are people of reason. And then so we have Narampa, and we have Serapio, who is on the other side of the continent when this starts, and he is a young man who has been raised since birth, essentially to kill Narampa, the Sun Priest, as an act of revenge for the generational harm that the Watchers, who are the people that Narampa sort of lead, did to his clan. And so he is blinded and scarred, and he is sort of a religious fanatic because I love a cult. But he is on a mission, right? And then he has to get to Narampa, and so the way that he does that is through Shiala, who is a sailor, and she is sort of a blast. She is I like to say, like, if she was going to invite you to a girls' night out in Vegas, you better get your bail money ready because Narampa's going to land you somewhere you don't want to be. So she's your hard drinking, sort of pirate-esque sailor, and she's going to escort Serapio for a large sum of money to the holy city. And they are all going to sort of collide on the day of the convergence. And the convergence is the winter solstice, an eclipse on the winter solstice, where the sun is at its weakest and the shadow is at its strongest. And therefore, Serapio, the shadow, faces Narampa, the sun, and only one of them will survive. So I knew this was going to be a multi-book series. I think I had first conceived of it as four, but I decided to go for the traditional trilogy in the end. And so, yes, so the first book ends on a cliffhanger. I'm not even gonna lie. I still get like fan mail that's like, why? Why did you do that to us? But don't fear because book two is available. You don't have to wait, like the original readers did. And book two follows the same characters, but we expand the cast to people who perhaps were not POV characters, but that you met in book one. Now they have their own stories to tell. And now I don't want to spoil anything, but these characters, go on to the next phase of their journey. The world expands. We get to learn a little more about the war that had happened before, how we all got to this place, the magic of the world as it's sort of coming back to life and where it had been suppressed for hundreds of years. And we have a sort of new villain rise on the horizon, who I absolutely love because I do love a villain. It's an exploration of the world in a bigger way, plus just a deep dive into who these characters are and what drives them. So the Priest of Knives is part of the Watchers, so they are part of the Narampa storyline, and they were actually Narampa's lover in a previous when they were younger. Let me say that, and but now they're at odds, and so the Priest of Knives. Gosh, I don't want to get too like deep into the weeds. But sort of each section of the Watchers has like a different role, and the Priest of Knives leads the CEO, who are assassins. It's like an assassins guild, essentially, and they make some decisions, like some difficult decisions, and it's hard to talk about without spoiling, so I don't want to say too much. But they are also one of my favorite characters. They are my chance. I think sometimes with these secondary characters, at least they start secondary and then they sort of grow. They sort of become, sort of their own character. With the Priest of Knives, I got to indulge a little bit of my sarcasm and just to have more fun, I think. A lot of the other characters are very serious, they're very dark. Shiala is not. That's my partier. Until later, right? So she has a character arc, and she grows into someone else. But the Priest of Knives, I don't think they do a lot of growing. They're just there to like, sort of comment on the world and sort of make you laugh, I think, a little bit, even though they're an assassin. The third book in the trilogy, in the Between Earth and Sky trilogy, is Mirrored Heavens. It just came out in June of 2024. And it is, the accumulation of all of these storylines like coming together. And I think it's really Shiala's story. You'll see she's on the cover. She's amazing, and she has come into her power. She is no longer sort of this lost um, sea captain. She is something much greater. But Serapio has also come into his power, and for him, it is a challenge. So what I like about Serapio, as I mentioned him before, he starts as sort of a pawn in his mother's ambitions, right? He's raised for one purpose only, and he doesn't really question it. So he's sort of like your kid raised in a cult, or a kid, raised in a very religious household. Only his goal is to commit mass murder. And so, but he meets Shiala, and she changes his life, right? And shows him that there's more to life than maybe being in this death cult. There's love, and there's just being a man. And so his challenge, especially in the early books, is to decide, who he's going to be. I think each of these characters in their own way have to seize their own destinies. Like they have been given a path, and here's the path you must follow, if you want to like be the person that you are. And at some point in their lives, they have to decide, hey, is this what I want to do, or am I something else? And so Serapio's arc is part of that, but it's not easy and it's not straightforward. So if you think you can guess what he's going to choose, you're probably wrong. But as he rises in power and eventually becomes the Carrion King, he really has to question what this looks like, because with power, I almost quoted Spider-Man, but I'm not going to do it. So I always am interested in, I think you can write this story that's like the chosen one, which you see a lot of in fantasy. And I really wanted to subvert that a little bit. So he is sort of a chosen one, but he didn't choose it, and he doesn't want it. And even when he has it, he doesn't know what to do with it, because it's very cool to kill everybody, but then what do you do after that? So I wanted to talk a little bit about what happens after the chosen one fulfills their destiny. And all these people come into his life that want to use him in different ways. Some of them want him to be their religious leader. Some of them want to use him as a political pawn. And a lot of people just want to get rid of him, right? And so he has to navigate all of that. He has to navigate his friends and his enemies, and people who just want to be devoted to him, like, which I think can be a little bit creepy too, and figure out who he is. But the crown is heavy, and he has to wear it, and then decide whether he's going to keep it.